In today's video, I want to discuss cycle syncing for menopausal women. So I use the term cycle syncing very loosely because clearly you are not having a regular menstrual cycle. However, you still are producing hormones to some degree. They are much less than what they were pre-menopause and even perimenopause, where it's an ever-changing game. But now in menopause, post-menopause, I should say, because menopause is really just one day. It's your 1 day anniversary of not having a cycle for 12 months. So if you are postmenopausal, then there is a strategy that you can take to reap the benefits hormonally and also gain as much energy as possible and really help you in the overall picture of things, and especially with muscle mass building and fat loss happening. So when it comes to the different concepts of cycle syncing, you are focused on the right types of foods to incorporate depending on where you're at in your cycle, which for you, it's going to be how you're feeling instead of the cycle. And also fasting, whether we're doing fasting or we're not doing fasting, and also the intensity of exercise you are doing, okay? So a few different pieces of the puzzle there. And what I will say, postmenopausal women are much more insulin resistant, so much more blood sugar sensitive than when you are in your younger years. And that is due to many factors. One especially has to do with a decrease in estrogen in our body. When that happens, it makes it much more difficult to put on and maintain even lean muscle mass. And so because that just naturally decreases and it's much more of a struggle, and as we've spoke about before, muscle mass is really what is going to allow you to keep that metabolic engine revved up. So we want to do everything in our power to execute the overall picture in the best way to really supply us with the most energy, but also add to our goals and reaching our goals. So in order to really do that, I suggest you wake up in the morning, and if you are feeling absolutely on top of the world, well rested, you slept for 8 hours plus, and maybe for you, you only need 7, but I highly suggest if we can get closer to 8, that would be better. You wake up in the morning, you feel amazing, and you're not hungry, then we can push you to lunchtime to have that first meal, okay? But I will say that I only want you doing that very infrequently, okay? And typically when you wake up in the morning, you're not feeling 100% on top of the world, okay? But for those few days through the month, and I will give you maybe maximum 4 days, no more than 1 day a week each month. I want you fasting and pushing that first meal back to lunchtime, okay? And the reason being is because if you're minimizing the opportunities of eating or how many times you're eating, then you're really cutting down that window to getting in a sufficient amount of protein to supply your body with what it needs to build that lean muscle mass and really to rev up your workouts and such. So if you want my honest opinion, you would do most of the days throughout the month would be you waking up, and even if you do feel on top of the world, you would still supply your body with some food in the morning, okay? That can be very small. That can be a protein bar. That can be some collagen powder or protein powder in your coffee. That can be a protein smoothie in the morning with your coffee or without. That can be some eggs and a little bit of avocado with a half or very thin slice of sourdough. So the focus being on protein, minimum 15 grams, and I would say, 20 ideally, but minimum 15 when you wake up. And then for me, I like to have something very, very small, and then you can work out. Ideally, you're working out in the morning. If you can't, then that's fine. You don't have to work out in the morning, but that would be my suggestion. So you're gonna have that in the morning, and then you're gonna wait until lunchtime to have a big meal, and then you're gonna have a big meal for dinner. And if you are working out in the morning, to get the most out of your efforts, you would ideally have something first thing in the morning, and then you would ideally have 20 to 30 grams of protein post-workout to get the most out of what you're trying to achieve, okay? Especially if building lean muscle mass is a top priority for you, then we really want to make sure that we are giving our body every chance of getting that protein we can, okay? And when we cut the opportunities down to 2 times a day, it's really difficult to get enough protein. And then it's really hard to digest if you're not used to eating bulk meals. So again, waking up in the morning, very rarely doing fasting. But with that being said, it's important to remember from the time you finish dinner to the time you break your fast in the morning, you do want to have 12 hours ideally, if you're able to have that amount of time just for your gut to somewhat detox. Now, 10 hours is honestly what I typically get because I tend to eat a little bit a later dinner, and then I wake up very early. But the days that I can do 12 hours, I feel so much better. I feel somewhat detoxed and cleansed from the night before instead of feeling like I still have food digesting and then I'm eating again. So that would be my suggestion to you, is trying to eat an earlier dinner. So that way, by the time you break your fast, it's been anywhere from 10 to 12 hours. Okay, so that's the fasting I want you to do instead of this prolonged 16-hour, 18-hour every day, because it's not going to be beneficial for your hormones. So in terms of the macros and how you should adjust that, I would say 85 to 90% of the time, you should be following a very high protein, high healthy fat, very low carb approach. That is just going to be best for your body in the hormonal state it's in. And for whatever reason, we do not prioritize that mindset. We always think we should be having these carbs with every meal, and that really is not going to benefit you from a hormonal standpoint or an aesthetic standpoint. So when you do want to have those carbs, I would set yourself up for that. So if you know you have a function coming up and you're going to go to this event and you want to have all the treats, and you want to have, or maybe you don't want to have all the treats, and maybe you just want to make homemade sourdough bread at home and you want to really just eat it with butter, and you want to have like a few slices, and that's just your passion, you love it, then do your best those days leading up to it to be very, very tight on your carbs. And then when you throw in those higher carb days, your body is not going to be as alarmed, and especially because you're going to do it and then you're going to get right back to your low carb days. And that approach is actually very beneficial to incorporate high carb days on occasion, but they should be very infrequent, okay? So that would be my suggestion in terms of the macros. Clean ingredients, of course, across the board the majority of days. And then when it comes to syncing your exercise, this is solely going to be based off of your energy that day. If you're feeling good, you should capitalize on that. You should try to push that heavy weight. You should try to do your HIIT training, really challenge yourself. And then the days you don't have it in you, you still need to be working out, but I would go a little bit lighter. And maybe not even lighter, maybe just do what you can do, but maybe not as many reps. And then you should more focus on, your Pilates, your yoga, your walking. And that's really going to supply your body and your hormones to the best level. And hopefully that was helpful. See you in the next video.